Oh, hell yeah, I'd love to.
Eventually, what I'd love to do is sort of just come to the restaurant, set up, talk to fucking.
Yeah.
You know?
I think, you know. They don't probably get like educated about food science by people. You know,
That it's always, all the people that don't know what the fuck they're doing, trying to tell you what to do.
Well, I admit I know very, very little about you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and your background.
Yeah, sure.
Before we get started. I know
Sure.
You were with Costello for a long time, right?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, so I've been going to culinary school since high school. So I went to like a VOTEC program, and that turned into, my teacher was like, I went to Johnson & Wales. Okay, go to Johnson & Wales. It was also a big thing for my family to like go to school.
Okay.
So because they didn't get their degrees, but they went to school, they just had to drop out because of me, basically. At that point, I go to culinary school, and then you find out really quick that it's bullshit, right? It's like, you're like, but then again, I was also at that age where I just wanted to party, and I just basically ended up selling weed the entire time through college.
Right.
And then in 2008, my buddy Charlie, who I worked with at Meadowood, was like, we need a grill cook for lunch. And I was like, word. And it's this touristy town in Jamestown, Rhode Island, like, pizzas, burgers, steaks, things like that. Huge menu, and I spent the entire college career there working from like 2008 to 2011. And then after 2011, I went to go work for this man named Jake Rojas, who had a restaurant called Tallulah's, closed now. But he's got like a taco empire in Providence, Rhode Island now. And he came from Robichon. So that's why I went to work for him, because he was serious. He was like, this is the first time I've ever been yelled at, but then you want that, right? Because you're just watching, you look up to Marco Pierre White, and you're like, this is the way it needs to be for me to learn, So you go get your ass kicked for a little bit, and then I became like unnamed sous chef there, right? But you think you're the shit, and you're fucking 21, you're nothing. And he's like, well, you want to be the best, you got to go work with the best. So I was always an old school guy, show up at the back door, like I don't like resumes. Right. I just wrote one 6 months ago because I had to, you know what I mean? But I've always been, show up. And then I said, what better way to do that than, if I show up at Meadowood? Because I don't know how many kids do that, and it's like a resort in the middle of nowhere, so I was like, I don't think that happens.
Kind of hard to knock on the door, yeah.
Exactly. So I figured, might as well make a big, impression. Go there, knock on the back door, they let me stage, 3 days later I get the job. And that started my 6-year tenure there. And then once that was coming to an end, chef figured I wasn't going to be CDC. At that time, I think he had Jacqueline was going to be the CDC for him. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, well, what are you going to do? And then Chef Cat was leaving Charter Oak. So he's like, why don't take over Charter Oak? And then, at that point, you're like, ego fucking, well, that's a burger place. Like, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? I'm doing this over here, like, doing God's work. You know what I mean? Sure. And then he's like, that's not, he's like, that's not the way to think about it. The way to think about it is you get to learn the financials. You get to, lead a team and actually be the guy. Because at that point, he was opening in Sioux in China. He was fucking all over the world, doing things for that and Meadowood. So I did about 2 years there. One of those years was COVID. And learned a lot about yourself, during COVID. You learn how strong you are, you learn how weak you are, you learn how weak other people are, So went through that, and then January came along, and I had already given my notice to leave at the end of this year. And I just think me and him both figured, you don't need me telling you no, and I don't need a boss. I'm good. I've learned everything I need. I think I can be my own chef now, run my own thing. And then at that point, it was just like, what are you going to do? Are you going to go back into a restaurant? And I'm really loyal.
Sure.
So if I go somewhere, I'm staying there for 2-3 years, And I didn't want to do that to myself. I was like, why don't you go be free for a little bit? My brother, or the guy who I went to college with, who I ended up being really close with, he started a business called Truffle Shuffle. Mm-hmm. And then Truffle Shuffle took off, and the guy who was their biggest investor, man by the name of Mitch, a big taxi guy in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Cool story about that guy. He owned basically all the taxis in LA and Long Beach and all that. Uber comes along, threatening to take him out. What he does is he buys the software that Uber uses to fucking, to run the shit.
Major
right?
Flex.
Yeah, some balls on that guy. But, he definitely showed me that you need to have balls in order to do what you want to do, and that's part of the reason why I chose to do this road trip. I was already doing the podcast, but I was like...
How'd the podcast start?
Podcast started in November of 2020. I've always wanted to be an entertainer as well, right? You dream of being a stand-up comedian, you dream of, entertaining people. Making people laugh is probably my first passion before cooking, right? And I was like, how do I do that, but also learn at the same time and also talk to people that I idolize? Let's start a podcast. Let's start a chef podcast. And then that way I could reach out to chefs like you, chefs like, Costa was on it, and a bunch of people that you normally wouldn't think would give you the time of day, but it has turned into sort of a vessel for that. So... how some cooks go around and eat all over the world before they come back and open their restaurant. I figured this is a good way of getting all that eating, talking with the chef, understanding what the fuck they're going through and their mentality. Because, it takes a special person to do this shit. You wake up early in the morning, you disregard all bodily health, you don't fucking get your teeth cleaned at the dentist. You know what I mean? You just go. It's just...
So the restaurant's still the goal, though.
The restaurant's still the goal at some point, but then I realized that hanging out with these retirees out in Wyoming, because after I did that personal chef job, took me from Palm Springs to Wyoming, and I had to drive to Wyoming, which is what opened my eyes to why don't I just drive across the country?
Yeah.
And then you start to notice that retired or not, humans will always have problems, and it's then you start thinking how many times have you gone to the supermarket and you see that retired guy checking out, groceries or driving a bus now after he's been an engineer for 45 years. He decided to collect his Social Security. It's not enough, so now he has to be a fucking bus driver. Fuck that. I'm not going to live a passionless life, I'd rather be broke and just, completely struggling than be comfortable just, making money somewhere, So... the goal is a restaurant. The goal is to train cooks and have a place where it's a chef restaurant. That's what I want to have. I want to be in a city where there's a lot of chefs doing their thing, but that's the place they come to when they want to eat good food, Locust sort of thing in Nashville. So that's the goal, but definitely this is a thing that I want to pursue. I want to blow up. I want to be able to do things on my own terms. So I've given myself, before it's I don't have any accolades yet. I don't have my Michelin stars, and I'm 30 years old. I'm a failure. And it's now it's I'm going to open my restaurant at 40 years old. And I'm okay with that. Yeah. I need to be okay with that, and that's fine. Everybody, travels at their own rate, and we're living in this society where we compare ourselves to other people. It's fuck everyone.
It's such an easy thing to fall into.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Candidly, I got to admit to you, I had the one of definitely top 3, probably top 2 meals that I ever had in my life in Meadowood in 2012, October of 2012.
Okay.
I don't know if you were around back then.
No, I started in 2013, but that era, the 2011, 2010 to 2013 was like that. Like everyone was there, and it was like this energy.
I still like struggle about describing it because it was just like it was this perfect thing. Like I was working at Saison at the time.
Yeah.
And my buddy was talking to Costo about going over there, and so he was trying to court this other guy. You know what I mean?
Got you.
And so we just had this wonderful experience, and everything about it. It was like everything that as a cook coming up that you like.
Yeah.
Aspire to, you know what I mean? Just hit every mark.
Yeah.
For, 2.5 hours. It was spectacular.
And you don't even feel it, because I've sat at meals for 2.5 hours and been like, yeah, what the fuck? Like,
well, I did, because I ended up drinking the wine pairings of my buddy too, because he was driving me back to the city.
Yeah.
We were back to the South Bay or whatever. So like when the time came to like go in the kitchen and talk to Chris, I was fucking wasted.
Yeah.
I was like, you really want me to talk to people right now?
Yeah. No, I hear you. Same way. Same here. Yeah. That wine pairing will sneak up on you. You don't think it, but then after a while, you're like, wow, there's literally 14 glasses in front of me. Every course has a pairing. Like, This is wild.
That was new for me. I'd never had a pairing at a restaurant like that before.
Yeah, usually it's like 6 wines, 2, 1 per 2 courses kind of thing.
Yeah, ended up walking out of there having like 20 glasses of wine.
Exactly. Yeah. That was the cool thing about it. It was like a place where every single position was just the most passionate they had ever been in their lives, and they were in that place at that time in their lives.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it was like that for everyone there. So everyone was just
I've been on a couple of teams like that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's really, you don't really get the opportunity to understand how cool that is until there's been some time between it.
Exactly.
You never feel that way, and when you're still in it, but you do get like I do, or at least me. I remember getting kind of moments of clarity about that. Like, this is really special. Like these people together are really special.
Mm-hmm.
I think you definitely had. Or did you try some of that ham that Sean brought when he did the 12 days?
Yes, I did.
Years
yes,
ago?
I did.
That was one of mine.
Oh, awesome. Okay, I remember that ham to this day. I was like, what the fuck? Can we eat more of that? And I remember, not Sam. Who was the chef that came? I forget his name, but
was it John Seisman?
I believe so. Yeah, and he was like, was trying to eat it. And he was like, "Yo, bro, like, you know what I mean? We only got so much of this shit." Like, that's awesome.
Oh, buddy.
That's what's cool about that charcuterie business. It's like you don't know who's had a hand in it. Obviously, if it comes from a certain place, you do. But that's a cool connection. You're like, hey, I made that a year ago. And now you're eating it at this like special dinner.
Yeah, I remember feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah,
pretty happy about that.
I remember egg sheets. We were going down on egg sheets. Mm-hmm. It was like basically like egg yolks that he would put between acetate and then cut rounds. Uh-huh. And then we were like veiling it on, I think it was grits or something. But I was like the balls to like do that ingredient for an 80-person banquet dinner. Go. Like that's what I knew. I was like,
yeah.
I'm somewhere where chefs come to cook dinners and they cook the best dinner they've ever tried to, attempted to cook outside of the restaurant.
Yeah.
So I was pretty fortunate for sure.
What year was that? Was that 16?
That was, I believe 16. Yeah. I think I might have been the meat cook at that time. But those 12 days, man, they're so tense.
Yeah.
You got a chef from the day before in there, coming to eat. Then you got the chef for the day after prepping and his whole team. And then you got the chef of the day, and everybody's just like focused on that. And I think the hardest thing for that event is splitting the focus between the guest chef's things and then cost us things because the expectation is still the same. It's not like, oh, I'm busy with the guest chef, I can't. It's like, no, you still have to prep your dish.
Just multiply
anxiety
times 3.
Yeah. So a lot of times it'd be like 3 p.m. and be like, all right, cool. Finally get